Picture this. It's the kind of moment that stops an entire arena cold. The music cuts. The crowd goes silent. And the one man who never, and I mean never, shows weakness, is standing in the middle of that ring with something in his eyes that nobody expected to see. Not rage. Not calculation. Something deeper than that. Something personal. Because what Drew McIntyre just did to Jey Uso wasn't just an attack on a competitor. It was an attack on family. And if you know anything about Roman Reigns, you know that is the one line you do not cross. Welcome back to Wrestling Impact, where we don't just cover wrestling, we live it. And today, we are diving deep into one of the most emotionally charged, jaw-dropping storylines developing in sports entertainment right now. Roman Reigns reacting to Jey Uso's injury at the hands of Drew McIntyre. Strap in. This one is going to hit different. Let's set the scene properly, because context is everything in professional wrestling, and without understanding the full picture, you're only getting half the story. For years, the relationship between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso has been one of the most complex, layered, and emotionally rich dynamics this industry has ever produced. These two men are not just tag team partners. They're not just stablemates. They are blood. Cousins who grew up together, who share a legacy that traces all the way back to the legendary Anoa'i family dynasty, a family that has given professional wrestling some of its greatest names in history. But their journey hasn't been sunshine and tribal chief celebrations. Oh no. If you've been watching closely, you know that Roman and Jey have been through it. There were times when Jey stood across the ring from Roman, fighting him with everything he had, refusing to bow down. There were moments of heartbreak, betrayal, manipulation, and ultimately reconciliation. That history is what makes what's happening right now so absolutely devastating to watch. Because Jey Uso, main event Jey Uso as the fans love to call him, had finally found his footing. He had evolved. He'd stepped out of Roman's shadow in a way that felt authentic, felt earned, felt real. The crowd embraced him with a passion that you simply cannot manufacture. When that music hits and Jey walks down that aisle, the energy in the building changes completely. And Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the head of the table, whether he shows it publicly or not, respects that, recognizes it, maybe even takes a quiet pride in it. And then Drew McIntyre happened. Now let's talk about Drew McIntyre, because this man does not get nearly enough credit for how genuinely menacing he is when he commits to a character. Drew McIntyre is 6 feet 5 inches of Scottish fury, and when he decides to make a statement, he makes it in the most visceral, unforgettable way possible. Drew isn't just a big guy swinging a sword gimmick. Drew is calculating. Drew is patient. And Drew has always had a chip on his shoulder the size of the entire United Kingdom about not getting the respect he believes he deserves. That frustration, that hunger, that barely controlled aggression, it makes him genuinely dangerous. And somewhere along the way, Drew McIntyre decided that the fastest, most effective, most attention-grabbing way to announce himself as a legitimate threat at the highest level was to go through someone Roman Reigns actually cares about. Not just an opponent. Not just a challenger. Family. The attack on Jey Uso was not random. Let that sink in. Nothing Drew McIntyre does is random. This was premeditated. This was deliberate. This was a message written in the language that Roman Reigns understands better than anyone: power and consequence. Drew wanted Roman's attention. Drew wanted to force Roman's hand. And he got exactly what he wanted, but perhaps not in the way he anticipated. Let me paint the picture of what went down, because the details matter enormously here. Jey Uso was in the middle of what looked like it was going to be a breakout performance. The crowd was absolutely electric, and you have to understand, Jey gets a reaction that most wrestlers spend their entire careers chasing. The Yeet chants were reverberating through the building. Jey was fired up, hitting on all cylinders, looking every bit the main event caliber performer he's proven himself to be. And then Drew McIntyre's music hit. The atmosphere changed instantly. You could feel it through the screen. The audience sensed danger before anything even happened. Drew walked down that aisle with that terrifying calmness he carries when he's in full predator mode. Not rushing. Not running, walking. Because when you're Drew McIntyre and you've made up your mind about something, there's no urgency. There's only inevitability. What followed was one of the most brutal, one-sided assaults we have seen in recent memory. Drew didn't just attack Jey Uso. He dismantled him. Methodically. Clinically. The Claymore kick alone would have been enough to make a statement. But Drew wasn't done there. He compounded it. He made sure the message wasn't just heard, it was felt. Jey Uso went down in a way that immediately silenced the crowd, and that silence? That silence is the most powerful reaction an arena can give. Louder than any cheer. Louder than any boo. Because silence means something real just happened. Officials rushed to ringside. Medical personnel followed. And the images of Jey Uso being helped in some moments, barely able to be helped out of that arena, burned into the memory of every single person watching. Social media erupted immediately. The wrestling world was talking about nothing else. Clips circulated everywhere. Fans were divided between shock, outrage, and a dark, guilty fascination with just how effective and devastating Drew McIntyre had been. But here's where the story takes on its most compelling dimension. Here's where we shift from great wrestling television to something that genuinely resonates on a human level. Roman Reigns' reaction. Now, Roman Reigns has built his entire persona around being untouchable, unmovable. The head of the table doesn't panic. The head of the table doesn't react impulsively. The head of the table sits back, surveys the landscape, and makes moves on his own timeline. That's been the foundation of what makes Roman Reigns the greatest character in professional wrestling over the last several years. The control, the composure, the absolute certainty that he operates in a different stratosphere than everyone else. So when Roman Reigns saw what Drew McIntyre did to Jey Uso, and trust me, Roman saw every second of it, the reaction that emerged was not what anyone expected. And that's what makes it so fascinating. There was no immediate sprint to the ring. There was no explosive outburst of rage. What there was, reportedly from those backstage who witnessed it, was a stillness. A quiet that was somehow more frightening than any explosion of anger could ever be. People who have been around Roman Reigns for years described it as watching a storm gather from miles away. You can see it coming. You can feel the pressure changing, but the thunder hasn't hit yet. And in that stillness, Roman Reigns made something very clear without saying a word to the cameras, without making a grand public statement, without pointing fingers on a microphone. The message was understood by everyone in that locker room who was paying attention. Drew McIntyre had just made a catastrophic miscalculation. Because here's something that Drew McIntyre, for all his intelligence, for all his strategic thinking, may have fundamentally misunderstood about Roman Reigns. He thought that attacking Jey Uso would either paralyze Roman with emotion or provoke him into a reckless, emotional response. What Drew didn't fully account for is that Roman Reigns' love for his family doesn't make him vulnerable. It makes him more dangerous. Because now this isn't just about championships or legacy or proving a point in the wrestling hierarchy. Now this is personal in a way that transcends all of that. And when Roman Reigns goes to war for personal reasons, history tells us those are the matches, those are the feuds, those are the moments where Roman operates at his absolute highest level. Let's talk for a moment about what the fans are feeling right now, because the fan perspective is crucial to understanding why this storyline has captured people's imaginations the way it has. The wrestling community online has been absolutely buzzing. Fan forums, social media threads, comment sections, everywhere you look, people are taking sides and expressing genuine emotional investment. Jey Uso supporters, and there are millions of them, are furious. They feel like Drew McIntyre targeted someone who had finally, after years of being overlooked, gotten the recognition he deserves. There's a protectiveness about Jey that his fan base carries. He's one of those performers that people genuinely root for, not just as a character but as a person. When he gets hurt, even in the context of a storyline, it feels real to people. It stings. And that anger is now directed squarely at Drew McIntyre. On the other side, you have people, and this is the interesting part, who actually understand Drew McIntyre's motivation even if they disagree with his methods. These are the fans who look at Drew and see someone who has been handed opportunities and then had them snatched away. Someone who has had to work and fight and claw for every inch of recognition. They see a man who decided that playing by the conventional rules wasn't getting him where he needed to go, so he flipped the table. And they respect the audacity of it, even as they root against him. And then there's the Roman Reigns contingent, the acknowledge me crowd, the tribal chief faithful who are practically salivating at the prospect of what Roman's response is going to look like. Because these fans know something that casual viewers might miss: you have never seen the full, unleashed version of Roman Reigns until you've seen him motivated by something he personally cannot walk away from. And this qualifies. The broader question circling through every wrestling discussion right now is simple and devastating in its implications. What happens next? What does Roman Reigns do? Does he immediately insert himself into whatever Drew McIntyre is doing? Does he wait and let Jey Uso, when recovered, have the first opportunity to get his revenge? Does he operate behind the scenes, pulling strings in the tribal chief way of his, making Drew McIntyre's professional life increasingly difficult before the full confrontation? All of these possibilities are on the table, and all of them are absolutely thrilling to think about. Here's my take, and I want you to think about this with me. Roman Reigns is a chess player, not a checkers player. He's not going to make an impulsive move. He's going to let this breathe. He's going to let Drew McIntyre sit with the consequences of what he's done, let him wonder when and how the response is coming. Because the anticipation of Roman's retribution might actually be more psychologically damaging to Drew than the retribution itself. Roman knows this. He's used it before. The uncertainty is a weapon. But there's also something else happening beneath the surface that I find genuinely compelling from a storytelling perspective. This moment, as terrible as it is in context, could be the thing that fully, unambiguously, permanently reconciles Roman Reigns and Jey Uso in the eyes of the audience. Think about all the complicated history between them, all the times Roman pushed Jey too far, all the times Jey had to question whether Roman truly had his best interests at heart or was simply using him as a piece on the board. If Roman Reigns goes to war for Jey Uso not because it's strategically convenient, not because it benefits him politically, but because Jey is family and family doesn't get to be touched without consequences, that resolves something emotionally for a lot of people who have been watching this relationship for years. It answers a question that's been quietly hanging in the air: does Roman Reigns actually love his family, or does he just use them? The answer, it seems, we are about to find out. In the most dramatic, high-stakes environment professional wrestling can provide. And what about Jey Uso through all of this? Because we can't lose sight of Jey in the middle of talking about Roman's reaction. Jey Uso is a fighter. Anyone who knows his history knows that he does not stay down. There's a resilience to Jey Uso that goes beyond wrestling ability. It's a fundamental part of who he is as a performer and, by all accounts, as a person. The injury, the setback, is going to sting. There will be frustration. There will be the difficult, quiet moments that athletes face when they're sidelined and watching from the outside while the action continues without them. But when Jey Uso comes back, and he will come back, he's going to come back with a fury and a focus that Drew McIntyre is not prepared for. Because you want to know the worst thing you can do to someone like Jey Uso? Give him time to think. Give him time to sit with his anger. Give him time to remember every single detail of what happened and replay it until the motivation is absolutely crystallized. When Jey Uso returns, Drew McIntyre is going to find out very quickly that he didn't neutralize a threat. He created one. The layers to this story are exactly why professional wrestling, at its absolute best, connects with people in ways that go far beyond what happens in the ring. It's not just moves and countdowns and championship belts. It's family. It's betrayal. It's loyalty tested under impossible pressure. It's watching people fight for things that actually matter. And Roman Reigns reacting to what happened to Jey Uso? That's all of those things wrapped into one storyline that feels genuinely, emotionally consequential. Drew McIntyre wanted to make Roman Reigns feel something. Well, Drew, mission accomplished. Roman Reigns feels something. The question is, are you prepared for what that feeling is going to cost you? We are going to be watching every single development in this story with the closest attention, because the pieces are moving into position for something that has the potential to be